Well, hello there. Welcome to another night of the 24 Days of Christmas. We're on day 3. It's December 3rd, and we're going to continue on with our story of A Christmas Carol. I've got some tea over here that I'm going to go ahead and get poured for myself before we get started. And isn't it nice when I am not trying to juggle 14 things all in the same night, and I can get things started off on time and nice and calmly. Man, is that a difference? That's quite nice. So we've already read a little bit of A Christmas Carol. We are, I would say, about an hour in. Every night for the next 24 days, I guess at this point the next 22 days, I'm going to be reading a snippet from some Christmas story, some popular Christmas story. In this case, I'm starting with A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, a classic, absolute classic. It's also in the public domain, which means that it's no longer protected by copyright, which means that I can read it and not get myself or anybody else in trouble for bringing this content to you. That being said, I'm reading about 20 to 30 minutes a night. I don't want to go too long because, I could probably narrate for 3 or 4 hours, which would not be great because I would finish this book in one day. But I'm trying to find a good stopping spot for each night and just read a little snippet to kind of keep the holiday spirit, as it were, going leading up until Christmas. Christmas is one of my favorite times of the year. I absolutely love the holiday season, the holiday spirit, giving back, being with friends, family, colleagues. And so one of the things that I did during COVID was live-streamed cooking because I was good at that. And I figured for Christmas, well, that is kind of cool. It costs a lot of money to do that, and money I don't have right now. But I can read. I like to narrate, and I like to do audiobooks, which, by the way, I have 8 of them up on ACX or Audible if you want to go and take a look and download some of the storybook ones. I've also got some medical narration ones that aren't that great to listen to, but I am going to be picking up from where we left off. All of these books are also being stored on YouTube. That is kind of what I would consider the main channel. If you want to go and listen to any of the previous stories or the previous chapters of the book, go ahead over to YouTube. You can look up my YouTube channel, which is Rob Sogo VO, all one word, and you can just type that into the search and then find people, and you'll be able to find me there. And you'll see a playlist called 24 Days of Christmas. And you'll be able to click on that and go and listen to all of the previous chapters or the previous sections that I am narrating. I am also, this does take time. This does cost a little bit of money to put together and actually produce. So I will, from time to time, be popping up a couple of QR codes. You might have seen them on the loading screen, and it'll look something like this. So you'll see I've got a Venmo, which you can just donate if you'd like to, buy me a coffee or throw some money my way for doing this. Not necessary, always appreciated. You'll also see the second one down on the bottom with a little coffee cup. That is a website called Coffee, which is geared towards creator donations. So either one of those is fine if you want to. Again, not asking, but I'll be popping those up periodically through the stream, just in case you're inspired and you're like, heck yeah, I'm gonna buy Rob a coffee. I will be putting those up. Now, when we last left off, Scrooge had been visited by the ghost of Jacob Marley, and Jacob showed him all the chains that he wrought in life, being kind of a selfish prick. And because of that, he's warning Scrooge and saying, hey, I don't want you to have to go through the afterlife the way that I'm going through the afterlife. So I'm going to have you visited by 3 spirits. And then he kind of exits out the window, and Scrooge is able to see hundreds, if not thousands, of other spirits floating through the air, lamenting the fact that they are also ridden with chains and needing to kind of pay their penance because of how little they helped humanity while they were alive. So we're going to pick up from where we left off with Scrooge looking out the window. And I'll read the last paragraph of that, and then I will continue from there. So, without further ado, every so often I'm going to take a break. You're going to see me sip some tea. This is some really good tea. It's called Throat Coat and Throat Health. There's actually 2 teas that I put together, and then I put them in this really nice insulated tea kettle looking thing so that I can keep it warm while I'm narrating. And this is essentially how I produce audiobooks. So if I'm doing an audiobook for you, you're an author and I'm reading an audiobook for you, this is my setup. I've got tea. Usually I'll have a little, what do you call it, another insulated tumbler full of ice and water. I love ice water. I can't drink room temperature water. I know they say ice water is bad for you, but too bad. That's just what I do. And during the summer, that comes in very handy because in the booth, it gets really hot. But during the winter, it's nice and comfortable in here, and I'm just going to stick to my tea. Plus, I'm not reading that much when I read these. I'm reading, like I said, 20 minutes or so, and so that's what you're getting. But the Throat Coat tea is really good. It's a little bit almost lemongrassy, a little bit of peppermint, and then just a very, very small hint of licorice. Black licorice, but not enough to taste like black licorice. It's like the menthol effect of the black licorice, which is really cool. I like it. It tastes really good. Anyway, we will get started. The air was filled with phantoms, wandering hither and thither in restless haste, and moaning as they went. Each one of them wore chains like Marley's ghost. Some few, they might be guilty governments, were linked together. None were free. Many had been personally known to Scrooge in their lives. He had been quite familiar with one old ghost in a white waistcoat, with a monstrous iron safe attached to its ankle, who cried piteously at being unable to assist a wretched woman with an infant, whom it saw below upon a doorstep. The misery with them all was clearly that they sought to interfere for good in human matters, and had lost the power forever. Nice little photo of all the ghosts. Whether these creatures faded into mist, or mist enshrouded them, he could not tell, but they and their spirit voices faded together, and the night became as it had been when he walked home. Scrooge closed the window and examined the door by which the ghost had entered. It was double-locked, as he had locked it with his own hands, and the bolts were undisturbed. He tried to say, "Humbug," but stopped at the first syllable. And being from the emotion he had undergone, or the fatigues of the day, or his glimpse of the invisible world, or the dull conversation of the ghost, or the lateness of the hour, much in need of repose, went straight to bed without undressing, and fell asleep upon the instant. Stave 2. The first of the three spirits. When Scrooge awoke, it was so dark that looking out of bed he could scarcely distinguish the transparent window from the opaque walls of his chamber. He was endeavoring to pierce the darkness with his ferret eyes when the chimes of a neighboring church struck the 4 quarters. So he listened for the hour. To his great astonishment, the heavy bell went on from 6 to 7, and from 7 to 8, and regularly up to 12, then stopped. 12! It was past 2 when he went to bed. The clock was wrong. An icicle must have got into the works. 12! He touched the spring of his repeater to correct this most preposterous clock. Its rapid little pulse beat 12, and stopped. "Why, it isn't possible," said Scrooge, "that I can have slept through the whole day and far into another night. It isn't possible that anything has happened to the sun, and this is 12 at noon." The idea being an alarming one, he scrambled out of bed and groped his way to the window. He was obliged to rub the frost off with the sleeve of his dressing gown before he could see anything, and he could see very little then. All he could make out was that it was still very foggy and extremely cold, and that there was no noise of people running to and fro, and making a great stir, as there unquestionably would have been if night had beaten off bright day and taken possession of the world. This was a great relief, because 3 days after sight of this first of exchange paid to Mr. Ebenezer Scrooge or his order, and so forth, would have become a mere United States security if there were no days to count by. Scrooge went to bed again, and thought, and thought, and thought it over and over and over, and could make nothing of it. The more he thought, the more perplexed he was, and the more he endeavored not to think, the more he thought. Marley's ghost bothered him exceedingly. Every time he resolved within himself, after mature inquiry, that it was all a dream, his mind flew back again, like a strong spring released, to its first position, and presented the same problem to be worked all through. Was it a dream, or not? Scrooge lay in this state until the chime had gone 3/4 more, when he remembered, on a sudden, that the ghost had warned him of a visitation when the bell tolled 1. He resolved to lie awake until the hour was past, and considering that he could no more go to sleep than go to heaven, this was perhaps the wisest resolution in his power. The quarter was so long that he was more than once convinced he must have sunk into a doze unconsciously and missed the clock. At length it broke upon his listening ear. Ding dong. 1/4 past, said Scrooge, counting. Ding dong. 1/2 past, said Scrooge. Ding dong. 1/4 to it, said Scrooge. Ding dong. The hour itself, said Scrooge, triumphantly. And nothing else. He spoke before the hour bell sounded, which it now did with a deep, dull, hollow, melancholy 1. Light flashed up in the room upon the instant, and the curtains of his bed were drawn. The curtains of his bed were drawn aside, I tell you, by a hand. Not the curtains at his feet, nor the curtains at his back, but those to which his face was addressed. The curtains of his bed were drawn aside, and Scrooge, staring up into a half-recumbent attitude, found himself face to face with the unearthly visitor who drew them, as close to it as I am now to you, through the internet, of course, and I am standing in the spirit at your elbow. It was a strange figure, like a child, yet not so like a child as like an old man, viewed through some supernatural medium which gave him the appearance of having receded from the view and being diminished to a child's proportions. Its hair, which hung about its neck and down its back, was white as if with age, and yet the face had not a wrinkle in it, and the tenderest bloom was on the skin. The arms were very long and muscular, the hands the same, as if its hold were of uncommon strength. Its legs and feet, most delicately formed, were, like those upper members, bare. It wore a tunic of the purest white, and round its waist was bound a lustrous belt, the sheen of which was beautiful. It held a branch of fresh green holly in its hand, and, in singular contradiction of that wintry emblem, had its dress trimmed with summer flowers. But the strangest thing about it was that from the crown of its head there sprung a bright, clear jet of light, by which all this was visible, and which was doubtless the occasion of its using, in its duller moments, a great extinguisher for a cap, which it now held under its arm. Even this, though, when Scrooge looked at it with increasing steadiness, was not its strangest quality. For as its belt sparkled and glittered now in one part and now in another, and what was light one instant at another time was dark, so the figure itself fluctuated in its distinctness, being now a thing with one arm, now with one leg, now with 20 legs, now a pair of legs without a head, now a head without a body, of which dissolving parts no outline would be visible in the dense gloom wherein they melted away. and in the very wonder of this, it would be itself again, distinct and clear as ever. "Are you the spirit, sir, whose coming was foretold to me?" asked Scrooge. "I am." The voice was soft and gentle, singularly low, and as if instead of being so close beside him, it were at a distance. "Who and what are you?" Scrooge demanded. "I am the ghost of Christmas past." "Long past?" inquired Scrooge, observant of its dwarfish stature. "No, your past." Perhaps Scrooge could not have told anybody why, if anybody could have asked him, but he had a special desire to see the spirit in his cap, and begged him to be covered. "What?" exclaimed the ghost. "Would you so soon put out with worldly hands the light I give? It is not enough that you are one of those whose passions made this cap, and force me through whole trains of years to wear it low upon my brow." Scrooge reverently disclaimed all intention to offend or any knowledge of having wilfully bonneted the spirit at any period of his life. He then made bold to inquire what business brought him there. "Your welfare," said the ghost. Scrooge expressed himself much obliged, but could not help thinking that a night of unbroken rest would have been more conducive to that end. The spirit must have heard him thinking, for it said immediately, "Your reclamation, then. Take heed." It put out its strong hand as it spoke, and clasped him gently by the arm. "Rise, and walk with me." It would have been in vain for Scrooge to plead that the weather and the hour were not adapted to pedestrian purposes, that bed was warm and the thermometer a long way below freezing, that he was clad but lightly in his slippers, dressing gown, and nightcap, and that he had a cold upon him at that time. The grasp, though gentle as a woman's hand, was not to be resisted. He rose, but finding that the spirit made towards the window, clasped his robe in supplication. "I am mortal," Scrooge remonstrated, "and liable to fall." "Bear but a touch of my hand, there," said the spirit, laying it upon its heart, "and you shall be upheld in more than this." As the words were spoken, they passed through the wall and stood upon an open country road with fields on either hand. The city had entirely vanished. Not a vestige of it was to be seen. The darkness and the mist had vanished with it, for it was a clear, cold, winter day with snow upon the ground. "Good heaven," said Scrooge, clasping his hands together as he looked about him. "I was bred in this place. I was a boy here." The spirit gazed upon him mildly. Its gentle touch, though it had been light and instantaneous, appeared still present to the old man's sense of feeling. He was conscious of 1,000 odors floating in the air, each one connected with 1,000 thoughts, and hopes, and joys, and cares, long, long forgotten. "Your lip is trembling," said the ghost. "And what is that upon your cheek?" Scrooge muttered with an unusual catching in his voice that it was a pimple, and begged the ghost to lead him where he would. "You recollect the way?" inquired the spirit. "Strange to have forgotten it for so many years." Oops, that was the ghost. "Remember it!" cried Scrooge with fervor. "I could walk it blindfolded." "Strange to have forgotten it for so many years," observed the ghost. "Let us go on." They walked along the road, Scrooge recognizing every gate and post and tree, until a little market town appeared in the distance, with its bridge, its church, and winding river. Some shaggy ponies now were seen trotting towards them, with boys upon their backs, who called to other boys in country gigs and carts driven by farmers. All these boys were in great spirits and shouted to each other until the broad fields were so full of merry music that the crisp air laughed to hear it. "These are but shadows of the things that have been," said the ghost. They have no consciousness of us." The jocund travelers came on, and as they came, Scrooge knew and named them every one. Why was he rejoiced beyond all bounds to see them? Why did this cold eye glisten and his heart leap up as they went past? Why was he filled with gladness when he heard them give each other Merry Christmas as they parted at crossroads and byways for their several homes? What was Merry Christmas to Scrooge? Out upon Merry Christmas! What good had it ever done him? "The school is not quite deserted," said the ghost. "A solitary child, neglected by his friends, is left there still." Scrooge said he knew it, and he sobbed. They left the high road by a well-remembered lane, and soon approached a mansion of dull red brick, with a little weathercock-surmounted cupola on the roof, and a bell hanging in it. It was a large house, but one of broken fortunes, for the spacious offices were little used, their walls were damp and mossy, their windows broken, and their gates decayed. Fowls clucked and strutted in the stables, and the coach-houses and sheds were overrun with grass. Nor was it more retentive of its ancient state within, for entering the dreary hall and glancing through the open doors of many rooms, they found them poorly furnished, cold, and vast. There was an earthy savor in the air, a chilly bareness in the place which associated itself somehow with too much getting up by candlelight, and not too much to eat. They went, the ghost and Scrooge, across the hall to a door at the back of the house. It opened before them, and disclosed a long, bare, melancholy room, made barer still by lines of plain deal forms and desks. At one of these a lonely boy was reading, near a feeble fire, and Scrooge sat down upon a form, and wept to see his poor forgotten self as he used to be. Not a latent echo in the house. Not a squeak and scuffle from the mice behind the paneling. Not a drip from the half-thawed waterspout in the dull yard behind. Not a sigh among the leafless boughs of one despondent poplar. Not the idle swinging of an empty storehouse door. No, not a clicking in the fire, but fell upon the heart of Scrooge with a softening influence, and gave a freer passage to his tears. The spirit touched him on the arm, and pointed to his younger self, intent upon his reading. Suddenly a man in foreign garments, wonderfully real and distinct to look at, stood outside the window with an axe stuck in his belt, and leading by the bridle an ass laden with wood. "Why, it's Ali Baba!" Scrooge exclaimed in ecstasy. "It's dear old honest Ali Baba! Yes, yes, I know! One Christmas time, when yonder solitary child was left here all alone, he did come for the first time, just like that. Poor boy! And Valentine, and his wild brother Orson, there they go! And what's his name, who was put down in his drawers asleep at the gate of Damascus? Don't you see him? And the Sultan's groom turned upside down by the Genii, there he is upon his head! Serve him right! I'm glad of it. What business had he to be married to the princess?" To hear Scrooge expending all the earnestness of his nature on such subjects in a most extraordinary voice between laughing and crying, and to see his heightened and excited face, would have been a surprise to his business friends in the city indeed. "There's the parrot!" cried Scrooge. "Green body and yellow tail, with a thing like lettuce growing out from the top of his head. There he is! Poor Robin Crusoe, he called him, when he came home again after sailing round the island. Poor Robin Crusoe, where have you been, Robin Crusoe? The man thought he was dreaming, but he wasn't. It was the parrot, you know. There goes Friday running for his life to the little creek. Ha-ha-lo-ha! Hoop-halloo!" Then, with a rapidity of transition very foreign to his usual character, he said in pity for his former self, "Poor boy!" and cried again. All right, So we've started our adventure into Scrooge's past. The ghost of Christmas past has visited him and taken him back to his childhood home. And we will stop there for the night. Like I said, I'm just going to be reading about 20 minutes a night just to kind of keep the holiday spirit going from now until December 24th. We're going to be starting with this book. As I said earlier, I'm reading royalty-free books for this narration. And if you have a Christmas story that you would like read, please let me know. I'm expecting this to take me about a week to finish reading, based on the word count and how long I think it'll be. And then I'm going to be reading The Gift of the Magi, and then I'm going to be reading The Night Before Christmas on Christmas Eve. So if you have a Christmas story that you really, really like and you want it read, go ahead and email it to me, rob@robsogovo.com. And if it's public domain, or if I can get in touch with the author and get permission to do a live stream of their book, I will be more than happy to read it for you. Public domain is easier because I don't have to check with anybody. I can just read it. And, hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully you'll join me again for the next one. Again, if you have a desire to go and listen to some of the previous chapters, go to my YouTube channel, Rob Sogovo on YouTube. You can just look for me in the search bar and find me and subscribe, or find the playlist that says the 24 Days of Christmas, and you'll see each one of these recordings listed there. So I hope you guys have a great night. Merry holidays. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. And we'll continue with day 4 of the 24 Days of Christmas tomorrow evening with the continuation of Scrooge's past. Have a great night, everybody. Talk to you next time.